This is Next Radio 2017 with Broadcast Bionics.
I'm going to go here.
Thank you very much. We've got 9 minutes to talk to you about BBC Asian Network comedy, but I realise that many people in the room won't have seen it and perhaps won't even have listened to the BBC Asian Network. Here's a little bit of background on the Asian Network. The BBC started a service for Asian immigrants back in 1965, and it included really important information like how to boil a kettle and how to roast a chicken. In 1977, they began broadcasting in Asian languages in the East and West Midlands, but it wasn't until 2002 that the Asian Network became a network. Now, like all really good BBC networks, they tried to close it in 2010, but after several protests and a lot of hand-wringing, they kept it open, and it soldiered on with half the budget and half the staff. But since then, it's been a story of revival. And in 2017, the Asian Network feels like this.
I am more than just a beard or the nation's favourite dish. There's 4 million different ways to understand what British Asian is. I am culture and tradition mixed with fish and chips and visions of 5 rivers. There's some modern day collisions. That's just how we're living. I could be a boxing champ and build your computer. We are everything the past has made us, and we are the future. We found a place to call our own. Not one city, not one town. You know what British Asian looks like? This is how it sounds.
So when I came back to the Asian Network a couple of years ago, the digital output was really old-fashioned. They were filming performers in parks, miming at Asian Network Mellors. There was lots of old footage. There was stuff from the BBC in Pebble Mill in Birmingham, for those of you old enough to remember. And we wanted to really modernise what the Asian Network was digitally. So working with producer Amana Hock and my fellow editor Calic Mir, we decided to place a big bet on comedy and just do one thing digitally that was really big. And there were lots of up-and-coming Asian comedians, and Asian Network had done comedy for a while, but this was about making it bigger and amplifying it, and making shows that we could take out around the country and sell tickets for, but at the same time, getting it on BBC iPlayer, on the BBC Red Button, on YouTube, in people's social feeds, and really using it as something that we could develop to bring in new listeners, new young listeners, importantly, to the Asian Network.
Hi. Hi, I speak. Yes, that's right. I don't just stand there looking coy. Hi there. So my name is Sindhu V. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I was on the bill at the first big BBC Asian Network comedy night, which was in Watford Palace. But let me give you some background. I started comedy seriously in Jan 2015. But previous to that, I was doing comedy, but not very... I couldn't do it as well as I wanted because I have 3 kids. You know, if there's a problem in your life, look if you have kids. So I have 3 kids, and it was really hard to get out, and these gigs go on all night, and you know, it was very, very hard. I used to gig a little bit in India, because when I went back to India, I live here, but when I went back to India, I could chuck the kids at the grandparents, you know, and go out and gig. But it was really hard to have any kind of reach with my comedy. And then in January 2015, when I decided I'm going to be very serious about it, I got a gig at Top Secret Comedy. I don't know if any of you know this, a comedy club in Covent Garden. And Romana Huck, who works with Brett on the BBC Asian Network comedy project, she happened to be there, she saw me, and she asked me to come along and be part of the Watford Palace bill. Now, I had not gigged to 600 people in the UK ever. So that was a wonderful thing. I thought, oh, 600 people are going to find me hilarious. That's great. What I didn't realize was it wasn't going to be just 600 people, because what the BBC Asian Network had done is they had just upped the game in terms of the digital platform. And so there were 600 people saw me that night. They loved me, by the way. Just loved me. And then after that, people saw me online because they sort of chopped it up into these really funny clips. And then they saw me on the Red Button. They continued to see me on iPlayer, which just was absolutely thrilling for me. The only one downside was in the gig itself, I got very nervous at one point, and I said a very bad, very, very bad Hindi word in my head, but it actually came out of my mouth, which was fine, but I didn't want my father to see it. So BBC iPlayer doesn't work in India. Yay. That was the only downside. But basically, it catapulted my career overnight, because all of a sudden my reach was just, you know, it was just spectacular. And I think that was something that as a comedian, I didn't expect, and I certainly think it was a gift. And then they went on from there to do several other nights. And I would have to say now that BBC Asian Comedy Night is sought after, both by comedians and by audiences. I know you're all thinking, where's the next one? I'm sure you'll find out. But now this is a big show, and it happens all over the country, and it looks a little bit like this.
Thank you so much for coming along. This is Asian Network's Big Comedy Night in Edinburgh!
Baby wipes. For all of those times
That you
breastfed your baby without even considering maybe it's a vegan.
welcome to Leicester, the birthplace of the BBC Asian Network.
So this is my status as Z-list celebrity. I'm not the best known gay Asian man in this country, but I might be the best known. There's never been Labour MP for Leicester East. And,
Welcome to the Watford Palace Theatre for the latest instalment of Asian Network comedy.
Let's have an Indian version of Rush Hour Crash. Can you imagine that? Saw you at the Gurdwara on Sunday. You were wearing a suit. I was serving langar. Our eyes met over the dal.
We're at the West Yorkshire Playhouse in Leeds.
You know, like, there's a lot of racial tension amongst us Asians, right? Like, between Indians, between Pakistanis, between Bengalis. Let me tell you something right now. You know, whilst we're all fighting amongst our differences, white people don't know the difference between any of us.
I guess the worst downside of having a very small child is that they are quite boring, right? And they want to show you they love you by talking to you all the time, but everything they know you already know.
I'm not a religious guy myself, but in some sort of cultural context, still think of myself in some ways, Hindu, Hindu. I'm a Hindu, which basically means that I don't believe in God, but I quite like sequins. Also, who doesn't love an elephant? Am I okay? Am I? Like, O.M. Ganesh.
Asian Network Comedy.
So we've been able to take Asian Network Comedy all around the country, and you can see it has its own specific set that we take with us, and we've put it on all those digital platforms. And it's one of the few projects I've worked on where we can actually see the direct effect it's having on the radio listening audience. 47% of Asian Network listeners are now under 35, and this is one of the key ways in which they're discovering the Asian Network, watching comedy on a digital platform, and then coming in to listen to the network. And it's important for the BBC because 45% of Asian Network listeners only listen to Asian Network as part of their radio services.
I just want to say the other thing about having a digital platform and what BBC Asian Network Comedy has done is it's given us comedians a social media presence overnight. Again, I mean, I had Twitter, but I didn't have Instagram. I mean, look at my age. I just didn't have Instagram, you know. But the moment people started watching this online or on iPlayer, they would start tweeting and say, do you have an Instagram? So now I have Instagram, now I have social media. Exponential, because it's very sticky when people are watching it digitally. You know, they come to a comedy club, you say, oh, I'm Sindhu V Funny, if you like my set, please follow me on Twitter. Everyone is drunk. No one is going home and logging onto Twitter, you know. But when they're sitting next to it, they can do it more quickly, and it's more likely. It really makes a difference. And as a comedian in this day and age, you want to have a social media presence because that's how you test out your jokes, and that's how you let people know your POV, and also where the next gig is. It's at Sindhu V Funny on Twitter, if anyone wants to know where my next gig might be. I think now, and one more thing, the most recent BBC Asian Network show, which was in Edinburgh, is on iPlayer currently, is it not? And you can watch it there. I'm not on that bill. And yeah, I know. I like to think it's because you can't have your poster girl on every show. So, I don't know, but do absolutely check it out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The old Megan was snatched up